For our next presentation, we have three presenters, Juan Pablo Alperin, Michelle Law, and Esteban Morales. The title of their presentation is Making Knowledge Public. Is it part of a professor's job? They're strongly committed to having open access to research. They believe when research is made available to the public, it can create a positive and lasting contribution to society. Please join me in welcoming Juan Pablo, Michelle, and Esteban.
5 minutes is too long for one person, so we thought we'd split it up into three people of 1.5 minutes each. We're going to change a little bit the tone of the conversation here. We have been talking and looking at ways that people are doing research about misinformation, but I wanted being part of a university, we entrust our universities and our institutions to be creating that knowledge, creating that truth, pushing those frontiers of what is our understanding, our collective as a society, and how it is that we are actually knowing what it is that we know. So this is how we formalize knowledge construction. We do it at universities, and we do it in this way. But while as a society, we ask the universities to do this work, do the universities then ask us to make sure that that knowledge is out there and is part of the public conversation and part of the public discussion? Are we as faculty members being asked to actually share this knowledge with the public? To find out what we have been doing at the Scholarly Communications Lab, we've been doing a research project to study review, tenure, and promotion guidelines. These are the documents that, for those of you that are not part of academia, these are the documents that when we go up for a performance review, for a salary increases, for a promotion, for any kind of career progression, these are the documents that explain how it is that we're going to be evaluated. This is what we're measured against. Right? And so we collected hundreds of these documents from over 100 institutions in the United States and Canada, a representative sample of institutions. We looked at those documents and started to look at the words that were contained therein. And we also surveyed faculty members at the institutions for which we had documents. And what we find some encouraging signs when we look for things like, we look for the words public, just like to see how it's present, public, the word community, and the concept of public and community engagement. What we find is that at the research universities, so the top bars on each of these bars, these are the universities that are really focused on research, that we see those words presented quite a bit. When we look at the comprehensive universities, Simon Fraser University would be included in that category, again, still present. And at the baccalaureate, the undergraduate, primarily institutions, it's a little bit less. But we find instances of these things. And you'll see, for example, the concept of community engagement is actually quite present in those master's institutions. So that's sort of the encouraging side of the equation. But when we find the language around these things can be a little vague, and when we look at the more specifics of what we're asked to see, we look at the words around metrics to see how are the things that we're actually going to be measured against. These are all citation metrics of how many times the research has actually been cited by other academics. We find that that's actually talked about also at a very significant number of institutions. And what's talked about almost at every single institution, over 95% of the institutions across the board, actually also across disciplines, is traditional research outputs. We talk about publishing articles, books, and monographs. And these are all things that are really sort of focused on the conversation that us academics are having amongst ourselves.
Can you hear me? Yeah. So after reviewing all these documents, we went and asked faculty what they thought of these concepts. So for example, we asked them, how do you define impact? We were expecting what it means impact, right? We want people's lives change. We want new technology. We want things changing in society. But what we got was something like impact factor, that is a number of citations, or just rankings, meaning how we are being assessed by other academics and other faculty. Something similar happened when we talk about quality. How are they defining quality? What we found was something like number of rejections in journals, something like the strictness of the review process, how hard it was to get published. It was really hard to get published in the journal, so that's a really good journal. Again, it's something about academics and academics, not against the community.
And so when we look at the language that's being used in these R2P documents, there's rhetorical strategies there that actually do disincentivize engagement with the public and the community. And so in these R2P documents, service work that is related to the community and public, as you can see in this quote here, scholarship and teaching supersedes service work. And then if we go to the next quote here, The language that we found that's in our surveys from our respondents mirrors that quality is equated to publishing in basically to ourselves, where our audience is academics.
But we don't want to be all dark and all grim. There is also some good responses. For example, some people, when asked about quality, they're also talking about the scholarly of the work, how well done the research was, how the rigorous was the process of getting the results. And especially when people were asked about open access, meaning the availability of the research, they were very positive about it, focusing more on the community can access the conversation. So for example, somebody was saying, open access is available to the public, meaning it should be not locked, or just is the future of public academic. Or finally, can post the link to Facebook, my mom couldn't read it.
So we do find that there is a lot of focus on these conversations amongst academics or amongst ourselves, but we do think that there's work to be done here around there. We see lots of encouraging signs. Faculty do care and think about these things, but we do need to think about how do we value this work so that everyone in the academic community should see as part of their work to confront the misinformation that's out there by making all of the research that they are doing, all of the knowledge we're creating out there and made available to the public. Thank you.